Are microaggressions really a thing, especially in relationships? Let's find out. My name is Miriam Asif, Commander Mimi on social media, and I specialize on effective communication in close relationships. Last video, we talked about passive aggressions, and to sum it up, it's basically getting your way, doing what you want to do, still at the expense of others, like in the aggressive way. But we do it indirectly. So when people are aggressive, mainly, they do things very directly. And the passive aggressive mode is more trying to really avoid confrontation and just saying things and being fairly sarcastic and joking, or even saying they're going to do something, committing, and then forgetting on purpose. So there's a lack of conversation, there's a lack of negotiation, there's a lack of honesty and being open with people. And like I mentioned, some people are very aware that they're doing these things, and that's why it comes off as manipulative, because they're really trying to get their way, just moving things around without being honest and direct. Now, some people do those things very they're just reacting. They're very unaware that they're just trying to kind of put out fires. And actually, there were some people that were kind of mentioning, like, well, people that are often late, sometimes they're just not trying to be late. They have kids, they have this, and they're not trying to inflict pain. They're actually not trying to do that. They're just, going through life. And that can be the case. Definitely, there are some people that they are aggravating people with their behaviors, and they're not doing it purposefully. So that's one side of the coin that is also true. Now the thing is, when we're causing inconveniencing other people, it is an aggression to other people. So it can be considered a passive aggression. And in the case of microaggressions, this is often the case. I will put some examples, not in the context of a relationship, but in the context of society in general. There's a lot of racism. This is not the topic of this video, but for example, if someone that looks a certain way comes into a store and now they got someone following them around because of the way they look, it's assumed that they're probably going to steal something, so they're being followed around. And this action, even though it's not direct, even though there's nothing going around it, it's a microaggression. So that's an example. There's a lot of other examples, but basically it's a form of prejudice. It's a form of assuming something of that person because of the way they look, because of the way they speak. It's just insidious. And right now it's a big topic on a society level about how people treating women, etc., etc. I'm like, how does this look in a relationship? This is most noticeable in the face of dating. Whenever, for example, me, that's why I said in the last video, like, I'm going to self-disclose a little bit of the experiences that I've had with microaggressions, because I like to do my hair, I like to do my makeup, I like to take care of myself. And usually it is a stereotype that people that spend time taking care of themselves, they don't study, they don't nurture their mind as well. The problem with microaggressions, when we want to be efficient and when we want to communicate something, we want to make it as possible, more likely that the other person is open to receiving our message. We cannot control how the other person receives or interacts or responds to our message, but we can make it more likely. We can make the environment so that the other person responds as we want them to respond, openly and listening and all that, right? So when we are behaving in a manner that communicates, I'm assuming that you are this way, I'm seeing in a stereotype, and I'm assuming that you're going to do this or behave or think in this way, it's a microaggression. That is hurtful usually for the other person. To just because I came in here with my hair done, then that means I don't read. That would be the example that I wanted to give. And that usually tends to make people, they're going to behave defensively if you don't have the education to calm yourself down, to know all these steps, to assume the best in others, to assume best intention, and to then communicate what you're feeling or what you need, to that you want to be treated fairly, respectfully, etc., etc., then most likely the other person's going to react defensively towards that microaggression. So we can see it in it can be in many different ways, but in my example, yes, if someone would tell me like, oh yeah, well, I spent I did get this comment once. One guy that was probably fairly insecure said, well, it just seems like you spend your teenage years taking care of your body, but I spend those years taking care of my mind and actually reading. Like, what? And before I was training in assertiveness, I had the very, very bad habit, because I would get this fairly often of like, oh yeah, well, how many books have you read? And what do you know about this? And okay, what's the topic that you know best? This? Okay, well, I have read this about that. And how would you, and then I would go on trying to crush them in their own knowledge game. So, not good. And I am embarrassed of my past behavior, trying to crush people and make them feel stupid for treating me like if I was stupid. That is a reaction game and power games that you don't want to get into. If someone is being aggressive towards you, even if it's unintentional, so it could be a passive aggression, or it could be, in this case, a microaggression, because they are behaving based on their beliefs of a negative stereotype on you. It could be of anything. It could be because you're black, it could be because you're Asian, it could be because you are Latina, it could be because you like to dress up or whatever. In any case, when another person is making an assumption on you and it's behaving as if though the assumption is true and their belief of what they see is true, then you're most likely going to get a defensive reaction. They're most likely not trying to offend you. It's just that's how the brain works. We humans have evolved in a way that we make this shortcuts to put things into labels and boxes, like this is dangerous, this is safe, this is dangerous, so I have to take care of myself, and it's faster to know how to react to those situations. If people that look this way tend to be criminals, then I'm going to take the safety measures. And so we go with different stereotypes, and that's very harmful for relationships. It's helpful to understand this, just to not take it as like, oh, that's a microaggression. That's not what we want. We want to understand why people do these things, to be more empathetic, as if they're often not trying to harm us. So instead of seeing it as trying to blame them, point the finger at them when they are being aggressive towards us, then we know, that's not how I like to be treated. This is an assumption, and I feel disrespected. Actually, that's an interesting assumption. We can then request what we need from the other person. Another way in which microaggressions can show in relationships is they often are making comments here and there, meaning that you do not belong or you are different to the group, saying, well, you wouldn't understand because you are Asian. You wouldn't understand because you haven't been, whatever, like you don't belong. Oh, it's because you're Mexican. Even if it has nothing to do that because I'm a Mexican American. It's something that builds up, that just, it's a message as you don't belong, you're different, you wouldn't understand, you're not part of the group. Some couples that I have seen this, sometimes it's about, yes, we're together as a couple, but you don't really belong to our big family. And sometimes when we take into account in-laws and those type of things, where these games come into place, this doesn't build togetherness. The we message is what keeps the unit strong. And in this case, microaggression is the opposite, is you don't belong. We are all different. But if we keep telling people, you do not belong, you're not really part of this unit, then it makes it very hard to find solutions together, because in reality, yes, we're all different and we have different groups, but at the end of the day, we belong to a bigger group, a bigger human group, and we're all in this mess together, a world and society. We're all together in this mess, and even though we may not belong to that specific group, we belong to this big group, and we have to find a way to coexist. So we can always find a way to find that common interest, find that commonality, or just even asking with curiosity questions to understand the other person's perspective. So I don't see why that would be a Mexican thing. Would you care to explain? And if you're the person making the microaggression, you probably won't know or won't be aware. So it's important to always be noticing if you are acting based on facts or based on assumptions. Do I have any evidence of the contrary? Or are there any other alternative explanations for this? Or if you see a defensive reaction from someone else, an aggressive reaction from someone else, is there something I did that may cause this reaction that could be a microaggression or a passive aggression if you really weren't intending to hurt that person or to aggravate that person? Gaining that level of awareness is very hard, but doing it little by little, questioning our assumptions, that is the big thing in relationships. You will notice whenever you're having a conflict, a bunch of things are because of assumptions of what I believe the meaning that I'm giving to this situation is the truth, and it's actually most likely an assumption, or the other person is giving a different meaning to what we believe the real meaning is. So always making these questions is what is going to save you from making these mistakes in communication. And for the next video, we're going to talk about how to transition into a more assertive way of being and the dangers that come with it. Yep, because there are dangers that come with being more assertive. But in all, even considering those dangers, no, they're real dangers, so beware. But even considering those dangers, it is way better to just be assertive constantly, consistently, because that is what will lead you to a life that fits you better, that will give you more satisfaction, and that will attract the people that are better for you. Because being assertive, because communicating effectively your needs, your wishes, your thoughts, it's what will attract people that will resonate with that. See you for next time, and don't forget to hit the bell and comment below. Let me know what you think. If some things sound weird to you, like the passive aggressive, like how can someone be passive aggressive if they're just not intending to, just comment that, and I will in the next video answer some of those questions for you. So don't forget to like, share if you think this will be helpful for someone else. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.